you creative souls, and welcome to the crazy ride that is my ICAD. I am Hope of Crafty Hope, and ICAD stands for Index Card a Day. This comes from Tammy Garcia. She's been doing it for about 12 years now, and she offers up themes and prompts to help inspire you. They are completely optional. And a couple years ago, Nina Fickett started using or offering up her own mixed media ICAD prompts as well. You can find both of those lists on Instagram. I'm going to have some links below with more information about ICAD. But let's get to this one. Before I go to bed, a lot of nights I will look to see what the next day's prompts are so I can have kind of an idea when I get up whether or not I'm going to use them. Well, last night when I looked and I saw that the Daisy Yellow, Tammy's prompt, is purple, and Nina's prompt, the mixed media ICAD prompt, is, oh y'all, is it Pyrrole or Pyrrole red? It's a shade of red. I was like, well, it's both colors. That's not too bad. But when I got up this morning and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, oh my gosh, purple and red. How am I going to bring those two together? And y'all, I probably should have just gone promptless for this because I know that I don't care for the colors purple and red together, really. I like purple, I like red. Together, they just don't really work for me. But I said, you know what? Maybe that's the challenge today. I'm going to go for it. So I went for it. And I went through my stash and I found that I had a golden acrylic and Pyrrole red, and I also, I'm dropping stuff in here, and I also used it's a Lucas acrylic paint in mauve, but it's like a purpley plum. And then I've also got some Lucas titanium white that I'm going to throw all of these three together on a little plate that I'm using as my palette. Now, the first thing I did was put down some collage. I've been trying to use up some scrap boxes or some boxes with some scraps in it, and these ICAD or these index cards are really thin, so thickening them up with some scraps is kind of my first step. And I just use my Uhu glue stick usually to throw them down. So you can see I got those down. I put my paint out on my palette and I tried to cover the card with the titanium white. It wasn't well mixed up when I squirted it out. And anyway, so I just threw a little gesso on top of it. I'm going to dry this real quick and then add just a touch more of the gesso that's still on my paintbrush. And really that's going to be it. That's how I'm starting this card. So in my mind, I thought what might work to make the purple and the red kind of work together was to lighten them up with that white and kind of do a pink and a violet, and then do maybe some layers of the actual colors of the red and the purple on top of them with some mark making. So that's what I'm going for here. I don't know. Yeah, as soon as I mixed up this pink, I was like, this pink is awful. It is so ugly. I don't know if adding more white would have helped or, yeah. So I'm putting it on the card. I've got a fairly wet paintbrush. As you can, yeah, I just made some pink and it's bad. It is not a shade I like. So I'm like, well, let's try the purple. Let's see what happens when I make this violet. And it's not too bad. I like purple much more than I tend to like red. So the violet's not so bad, but up against that really awful pink, I mean, nothing's gonna help that, y'all. Nothing's helping it. So I'm just gonna stick that down kind of a little bit above and below it, touching it, and then I'm like, well, I'm gonna persist. I'm gonna keep at this. So I get a little more water, trying to like blend them a little bit more, make them flow across some of the texture from the gesso and the collage, and yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and dry all of that wet and blot it a little, just like this. And then I'll start with the mark making. So I'm going to get kind of a flat paintbrush and get some of that mauve purple on it and make these elongated circly shapes within the purple, because like I said, I wanted to do like the same shade but darker on there. And it's a little funky, yeah. And I'll do some really thin little marks within the red with the concentrated red. And they're okay. The first set of them, because I do several sets, the first set I really like, but as I work across the card, I really start to hate them. And yeah, I was like, what am I thinking? What am I going to do with this? I can't work with this. Even throwing some instant coffee at it is not going to help this. So I did what I suggest all the time you do. If you don't like what you're making, cover it up, start over. So I'm going to look at this for a second and go, oh my gosh, this is just bad. So I grab my paintbrush with my titanium white paint and I'm covering it up. Now, because some of that paint is still kind of wet, it gets kind of, some purpley and some pinky areas. That's fine. That just adds to it. I am okay with it. I'm not hating it, but I had to cover up that disaster that was going on there. So I'll dry this, and while I'm drying, I'm thinking about what I want to do. And so I said, you know what do I love to do is use my hand carved stamps. So for some reason, I had flowers on the brain, and I stamped down using seedless preserves, distress oxide, stamped this one. And while I had been going through my box of hand carved stamps, I'd found this other like propeller almost shaped flower type thing. And so I'll use candied apple to also stamp that down. And I think, did I do 5 of each flower? Yeah, something like that. And something hit me that I wanted to kind of go around those propeller shapes, give them a little more texture. So first I grabbed my food ball pen and decided, I was just going to destroy it, trying to drag it through some of that wet-ish textured stuff. So I love this roller ball pen, y'all, from the Dollar Tree. It is always fairly juicy. Because it comes in packs of like, I don't know, 2 or 4 or something for just over $1. I don't care if I mess them up. They do this amazing bleeding technique when they're wet. So that's what I decided to do is grab that thin paintbrush again and just kind of add shadow by bleeding out some of that pen mark. And I love this. I love it so much, I decided to go ahead and do the same thing with the purple flowers too. I got a little too much water there. But yeah, and I could have used a Stabilo or some other kind of pen or pencil, but like I said, I really love the way this dollar store pen does this. It's just a thing I like to do. So yeah, there I decide, let me just do it with the purple one too. So I'm going to take a little time. This is in here somewhere. I was like, y'all, what am I doing? I don't know what the next thing is going to be that I do with this. And yeah, so I'm thinking this whole time. So I took a few extra minutes, a little more time to just kind of think and get into the groove of blurring out that pen mark. And what's great is the distress oxides are also kind of, they water reactive, so they blend bleed a little too. So, and I don't hate that. All right, so I think I'm gonna dry this since it's all good and wet. And while I take a break while drying it, I go and grab some embroidery floss and a little scrap of fabric from my scrap box. It's got a purple dash on it, and I decide it doesn't have near enough red. So I use that candied apple distress oxide to just put a little bit of red on it. And I thought I was going to tack this down with the embroidery floss. And I thought, what I really want is some of the embroidery floss behind that scrap of fabric. So I cut it and I started to tear it apart, and it was just annoying. Yeah, I was very frustrated today. So everything was like, oh, that isn't working. Oh my gosh, try something else. It's how the whole morning felt to me. So I got a different thread that I didn't need to tear apart and just balled it up. And I'm going to use some Matte Gel Medium, just stick it down with a palette knife, stuff that thread in there, and I'll put a little bit on the back of my fabric, but there's enough down really on that card that it doesn't really need it. And I went and got my small talk stickers from Tim Holtz and found the phrase "never give up," which, y'all, with this card, that's exactly how I felt. Like, I just did not need to give up. I needed to keep going and make it work. And I've had, I had a kind of a weird day yesterday that kind of, put me in a different spot, but everything's okay now. And, all of that. Just don't give up. Keep going. So this needed to be framed a little bit. So I've got my black soot distress oxide and just went around the card a little bit to frame it up. And it still felt like it needed something more. So while I put away some of those things, I'm thinking on it. And I've got that plate full of paint over there. So y'all, I'm going to do some splatters. It just makes me feel better. So I used some of the concentrated, that mauve purple, and splattered it. I'm going to do the same thing with the red. And then I'm like, you know what? The whites, well, I'll dry it because I didn't want to put the white down with that purple and red being wet on there. I was afraid it would make pinky and violet again. So I'll dry it and then do some white splatters. And I'm done. I didn't give up. I had to cover it up and start over, but I got my ICAD 23 done. It's not my most favorite card because I'm still not a big fan of of purple and red together. But it's something. It's not a horrible card. It's just not going to be my favorite. I'd love to know what you think about it and how you would have fixed this horrendous mess. Let me know below if you did like this or was inspired by it. Give me a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe. I really appreciate that you came by and stuck with me through this. And I encourage you not to give up today. Keep at it, be creative, and have a beautiful day. Thank y'all. Bye.